And welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. It's September 6th, 6:30 p.m., and I'm delighted to see everybody taking an interest in our town business tonight. Madam Clerk, are there any regrets for this meeting? Oh, Madam Clerk. The meeting began.
No, we have no regrets for this evening.
Thank you, Council. In chamber and remote, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare? Madam Clerk, I see no. Oh, Councillor Knoll.
Thank you. I don't have my agenda open yet, and I can't remember the item number, but it's with respect to the application. Thank you, 550 Kerr Street. I don't know the item number, but I do want to declare pecuniary interest on that. It's a long-standing pecuniary interest, 7.3. Thank you, Kathy. I am the CEO and shareholder of a corporation that is a tenant of property at 171 Spears Road, which is part of the official plan amendment proposal before us this evening.
Right, so hopefully you'll, before the end of the meeting or in due course, fill out the declaration form for the clerks.
Will do, sir.
All right, now it would be in order for two members to move and second resolution into Committee of the Whole. Councillor Lischina and Councillor Longo, thank you. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, no one objects, and so that carries, and we are now in Committee of the Whole. We have no public consent items, but we do have, I believe it's 5 confidential consent items. And I have been told of a desire to go into camera to consider 2 of them, 5.2 and 5.5. And I will look for a motion to adopt the other 3. And Councillor Adams, thank you for the motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, that carries. Thank you, Councillor Adams. And out of respect for the public, we will move those confidential items to the end of the meeting after we've completed all the other business. So I'm just going to set those aside now. That brings us to our first public hearing item. Our first public hearing item is the public meeting and recommendation report for official plan amendments at 103 Burnhamthorpe Road West. And we have a presentation from Rob Thun, our senior planner. And if anyone is watching the live stream of the meeting on oakville.ca who wishes to speak to this item, please call 905-815-6095 and we'll connect you to the meeting. You'll be called upon to speak following registered delegations, and we have a number. And if you didn't get that number, Mr. Thun is going to give it to you again. Mr. Thun, we're all ears. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, I'll just wait till the screen comes on. Okay, thank you. An official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, along with a draft plan of subdivision application, was submitted by 6 Oak Inc. for the development of 23 hectares of land located on the northwest corner of Burnhamthorpe Road and 6 Line. That overall development plan was previously discussed with Council at the May 2nd Planning and Development Council meeting. So tonight's meeting is strictly on the official plan amendment associated with that original application that Council received, and it's not on the zoning and it's not on the subdivision. The report on the OPA can be found as item 6.1 of tonight's agenda, and as you had mentioned, Your Worship, this meeting is a combined statutory public meeting and recommendation meeting on the official plan amendment application only. Because of the required changes to the urban structure scheduled for the Livable Oakville plan, the additional official plan amendment and public meeting was deemed necessary. Staff will be targeting, or staff are targeting, the first quarter of 2023 for the associated draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, following further discussion on some logistical and technical matters related to the subdivision. And as you had mentioned, Your Worship, the number on the screen is 905-815-6095, should a member of the public wish to call in. For everyone's information, the slide on the screen identifies the site of the entire subject holdings and its contacts with the surrounding area. The subject lands, as I had mentioned, are at the northwest corner of Burnhamthorpe and 6 Line. It's within the West Morrison Creek and 16 Mile Creek subwatershed, so there is a drainage divide on this parcel of land. On the southerly portion related to the West Morrison Creek, it contains Core 6, which is the woodlot that is on the screen presently right now, where my cursor is, and that has been identified through the North Oakville Creek subwatershed study. Core 7, which will be a subject discussion later on, is to the south of Burnhamthorpe Road, where my cursor is presently. Residential dwellings and a regional reservoir are located east of 6th line, so you can see that on the air photo. Where my cursor is the reservoir and the residential units south of Loyalist Trail. The unopened section of William Halton Parkway is immediately north of the subdivision, so that is in this area where my cursor is right now, and that is presently under construction. So, Your Worship, just take you back a little bit, even though this is about the official plan amendment on the secondary school. The overall development, as I mentioned, was reviewed with council on May 2nd of this year. It included 23 hectares of land for a future employment block, which is block 1, a secondary school block, which is block 2, a stormwater management block, which is block 3, and 3 NHS blocks. They are 4, 5, and 6. 4 is the core that I had mentioned previously, core 6, and 5 and 6, the blocks are linkages that are 100 meters wide, which will connect up to core 7 and to core 8. Access to the site will be from 6th line, from Burnhamthorpe Road, and also the future William Halton Parkway. With regards to the school itself, funding is available from the province for the school, and it has a target opening date of 2025. So tonight, for information of council and the public, the OPAs basically relate to the northerly area where the playing field is. And to go through that quickly, ROPA 48, which is a regional official plan amendment, was approved previously by the province and Halton region, and it redesignated the northerly portion of the site where that playing field is that I just recognized, from employment area to urban. The area just to the north of that, the white, which is the natural heritage system, remains. So that's the divide between the urban area and the employment area. From the secondary plan perspective, your middle image is the secondary plan, the North Oakville East secondary plan. The site itself is, for the official plan amendment, is transition to the lower portion and employment. And from the perspective of uses permitted in the most land use designations, educational facilities are permitted in most of those designations. However, educational facilities are only permitted in the employment area if they're related or support an employment use. Example would be like a welding school. The image on the lower right is from the master plan, and as you can see, the site itself is transition. Natural heritage has the yellow, which is the employment, and also the swim pond in the southeast corner of the site, which is to be moved. So from the official plan amendment perspective, what staff are proposing, there are two amendments, OPA 48 and OPA 327. With regards to OPA 48, that relates to the Livable Oakville plan, and that amends, as you can see from the top image, the area associated with what I previously called it employment, so where my cursor is right now. It amends Schedule A1 from the urban structure from employment areas to residential areas, and that is consistent with ROPA 48. OPA 327 relates to the North Oakville East Secondary Plan. The middle image where my cursor is right now, that area we were just talking about where the playing field is, figure NOE1, which is the community structure, we are removing the employment designation from that northerly part. With regards to NOE2, the land use plan, which is in the bottom right-hand corner, we're redesignating that northerly portion of the site from employment to transition, and also the high school symbol or the secondary plan symbol that had originally been located at the northwest corner of Neogawa Boulevard in Dundas is being relocated to this site, the northwest corner of 6th and Burnhamthorpe. In addition to that, we are also amending several of the existing NOE policies or the secondary plan policies related to the school for no minimum height and no floor space index. It should be noted that the master plan is not being amended through this process, but it will be reviewed as part of the ongoing North Oakville East secondary plan review process because it's not part of the operative section to the secondary plan. Your worship, there were some comments that came in this morning that I was made aware of, and I just wanted to highlight that right now. One of the comments related to the proportion of land allocated for the proposed school. And the size of the site and the size of the school that will eventually be built on the school site is a function of the planning process related to the school board's functions. The school, we are implementing the school's wishes with regards to the site and accommodating it through the zoning bylaw. But the size of it and the size of the block itself is related to ongoing functions from the school board, not planning staff. So in conclusion, your worship, staff are putting forward this following recommendation for council's consideration. And once again, I remind council and the public that we will be returning in the first quarter of next year with regards to the zoning bylaw amendment and the draft plan of subdivision for this site. We are looking at some technical and some logistical issues right now. They're important issues for the school itself. So those need to be sorted out before we can come back to council. Thank you, your worship.
Thank you, Mr. Thun. Council, do you have any immediate questions for Mr. Thun? I see none. So, pardon? Councillor Sandu.
Thank you, Mayor Bergen. I actually just have one quick clarifying question because I believe that there is a number of delegates that are here for this particular matter. I wanted to clarify with Mr. Thun. You spoke a little bit about the actual area of use that the school board has petitioned to us for. I was hoping that you could explain for the members of the public what exactly the town's role is in this process. So the way I have always explained it, please feel free to forgive me or correct me, is our role is to ensure that the area is planned, that the area is sufficient, and that we review whatever applications they bring forward and for us to put the pipes in the ground and nothing more. Can you help us with that, please?
Through your worship to Councillor Sandu, if we can bring up the slide or the presentation again. So, Councillor Sandu, with regards to your question, block number 2 was established by the school board. They require 15 acres for a secondary school. So block number 2 is 15 acres. It is sized based on the functions that are required for the secondary school, be it the school program, the daycare center, the playing fields, the parking and whatnot. So on your right-hand side of that screen, that is what is being considered at the present time. There may be modifications to that, but for the most part, that is what their requirements are. And that was established by the school board, not by the town staff. So we're implementing, for lack of a better term, the wishes of the school board, but it's the benefit of creating the community. These are community assets that are necessary. So through this application, we're achieving the secondary school function.
Thank you, Mr. Thun. And just one other kind of quick piece of that. We're already at a large overflow capacity within the schools in North Oakville. And I think that this kind of plays into that. And I wanted to clarify for everyone there and for everyone online and for everyone at home, it's important that this school is built here. We had a potential situation where we could have had a school at the corner of Neogawa and Dundas, as Mr. Thun indicated previously. This was moved at the behest and the request of the school board. we need to ensure that shovels are in the ground from a school board's perspective, because I believe they have funding for this already, right, Mr. Thun? And we need to make sure that that happens sooner rather than later, because we need to make sure that the kids that are graduating from elementary school have a place to go. And 2025 is already a little bit of a wait. We'll only be waiting longer if we defer this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sandhu. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Thun. You actually covered one of my questions, which was where is the school board in their application, their zoning application? So I believe you said they're working on some things, and we'll see that in 2023, early 2023.
Through your worship to Councillor Palmer, yes, we will be returning to council in the first quarter of 2023 with the zoning applicable to the site.
Okay.
And also the draft plan of subdivision with its associated conditions.
Okay. One of the items, if I could flag for you, I'm not sure if this is already being reviewed, is in the surrounding land uses, there is an E1 development that is proposed to generate low truck traffic. And I would like to know if the school board has taken that generation of traffic into their transportation impact study for the area.
Through your worship to Councillor Palmer, a transportation impact study is required for any official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment application, along with the subdivision. And in that, they do modeling with regards to vehicular and truck traffic and pedestrian movements and whatnot. So a portion of the modeling that is undertaken does relate to trucks, does relate to the cars, and it does do the general area.
Great, good to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. If there's no further questions from council, Madam Clerk, would you call the registered delegations?
Our first delegation is Gurpal Basali. He's in person.
Welcome, Mr. Basali. Council looks forward to your information.
Yeah, can I speak? Okay. Yeah, thanks for giving an opportunity. So I live in the subdivision, like directly across from the development. And are you able to hear me properly?
Mr. Basali, no one can hear you. So if you'll bring the mic, yourself and the mic in closer proximity.
Okay. Yeah,
Or
can you guys
speak
hear
up.
me?
Use your outdoor voice.
Is it on or?
It is on.
Yeah, okay. So I live in the Ivy Rouge subdivision directly across from the school development site. And the reason I came here is there is an employment land, as Councillor Parmar pointed out. So the access to the employment land, like industrial land, is through the Loyalist Trail, and there's no restriction on the type of trucks which goes through the Loyalist Trail. And so in future, if you are building a secondary school just across from there, so what is has there been any like traffic or health studies done? Like how will it impact on our resident across from there? And if there is a school, like, right, if there are functions in the school, and will there be like cars parked on our residential neighborhood? And how will there be safety be ensured if there is a truck traffic going on the Loyalist Trail? So basically the question is like, what is the impact of safety on the kids who are and the residents who are living on the Loyalist Trail, as well as the kids who will be studying in the school, if there is actually a lot of truck traffic going on the Loyalist Trail to the industrial lands?
Is that's your delegation?
Sorry?
Is there more to your delegation?
Yeah, no, that is a concern I have, basically.
Thank you. Mr. Thun just explained to the councillor that traffic studies are done and that they were and I believe he wouldn't be recommending it if in the report it says they're satisfactory. So if I understood you correctly, you want us to do something about truck traffic on Loyalist Trail, is that correct?
Right. So yes, that's correct. Because we feel it's contradictory because of the safety of the kids. Like our kids will also be going in the secondary school.
Yes.
And as well as when there is events and functions, like there'll be a lot of cars parked like in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the kids will be running around, like the kids are kids, right? So we can't, nobody can keep a watch on them 24/7.
Yeah.
And so if there's like truck traffic, like, so we live there and truck traffic starts at 6 o'clock and runs till 6 p.m. And because of the construction right now, and there's like dust throughout the neighborhood. And and the school buses, like, there's like 2 hours window during the morning and 2 hour window in the afternoon where school buses stop for various schools, and trucks are running past them. And so in future, like, there's no restriction on the kind of trucks, right, which will go into the employment lands from the Loyalist Trail just across. And if the Loyalist is extended towards the school, and so basically the truck traffic can go there as well. So I feel this school, like, there shouldn't be a school there because, like, you guys have allowed trucks, like, to run freely, right, like in the Loyalist Trail. In the vicinity of the school, right, there shouldn't be any trucks traffic. That is a concern.
Thank you for confirming what I thought you said. You're in favor of having the school there?
Yes, I am in favor of the school there. Like, that's an honorable thing, and we all support that. Like, the concern is the no restriction on the type of truck traffic on the Loyalist Trail. As far as I know, there is no light and heavy. Like, all kinds of trucks are allowed.
Okay.
And basically, we are already living and, like, bearing the consequences of truck traffic. And once the school is there, like, I think the kids also will have to bear the consequences.
Okay.
And because we are providing like 3 access points from Loyalist Trail into those employment lands. And so the problem is like the truck traffic, like in that area.
Okay, thank you for making that very clear. And thank you for your delegation and the time you took to bring it.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Next delegation is Brian and Linda Lamore. They're in person also.
Welcome, Mr. Lamore. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. I have a little speech written to try and help me present my ideas. Let me ask you, councillors and mayor, do you have a school across from your residence or in your neighborhood? Do you have children, grandchildren, elderly parents who go for walks or like to be outdoors? Does your community have industrial traffic through your neighborhood leading to your school? Do you have playgrounds, cycle routes and trails with approved truck routes alongside? Do you have industrial so-called employment zones with direct access within your neighborhood? If you do, aren't you worried that lives are at risk? We need to care for those who are less able to protect themselves. We need to reduce conflicting traffic and pedestrian issues. We need to protect our schools and our neighborhoods from possible tragedies which can be avoided. Families need to feel that their children are not only safe at school, but also going to and from school. We need to reduce industrial, so-called employment uses from being able to access their sites through residential communities. We, the residents across from the proposed school site, need to feel safe. The employment usage site in our neighborhood is now industrial with loading docks all accessed directly from Loyalist Trail. Loyalist Trail has been wrongly approved as a truck route connecting the industrial site to the intersection directly opposite the school site at 6th Line. Traffic, including vehicles, industrial trucks, fire engines, school buses, and pedestrians from the school sites and the neighborhood have to cross the 6th Line from 3 directions. Travel along Loyalist Trail is already dangerous since it is currently a truck route within our neighborhood. Loyalist Trail across from the school is clearly marked as a bicycle route. Traffic now, including trucks, pass the playground all day long and the intersections of our residential streets where children also play. Today, I saw 6 construction trucks for the industrial site parked on Loyalist across the street from the playground, with their engines idling. A school bus came along, right beside the trucks, to pick up the kids at the playground, because that's where they get picked up. Once the bus left, a few truckers honked their horns to get the first truck moving. So they headed to the site, and 3 more trucks went by the park to join the line. Shortly after, there were trucks traveling in both directions, a typical occurrence on Loyalist. Then 3 asphalt trucks came up beside the playground to start paving our streets. All of the trucks were bunched up both sides of the street. It was crazy. Safety has been ignored for our children, our elderly, and our community residents. Having a high school and access directly across from the intersection of Loyalist Trail and the 6th line will lead to chaotic conflict and danger. We have industrial and construction trucks heading to 6th line along Loyalist Trail, then connecting with William Halton Parkway and Burnhamthorpe. With the current zoning and allocation, industrial traffic flow in all directions adjacent to the school and across from the entrance to the school at Loyalist. As long as there is this industrial access from Loyalist Trail, safety is a major problem. Industrial traffic, including its construction trucks, should be kept off Loyalist Trail and our residential streets. Not only for our residents, but also it reduces danger in and around the school site. William Halton Parkway makes more sense to access employment lands adjacent to neighborhoods. Trucks and traffic do not mix well with children, with elderly, with skateboarders, scooter users, rollerbladers, and those previously mentioned. Industrial employment usage, access from Loyalists must be changed. Access to industrial employment uses must be limited to Halton Parkway or to Trafalgar Road, where this type of zoning is more appropriate. We need to protect, not risk the lives of our residents. Trucks must be stopped accessing the industrial site directly from Loyalist Trail. The access must be changed to come from William Halton Parkway. A fire station at the corner of Loyalist Trail and 6th line opposite to the school site has been approved. This adds more risk. 24-hour emergency traffic, not scheduled times, and in addition, there's more employment usage right next to it. High school teens are often not alert to what's going on. Seniors who can't hear or see well also cannot respond quickly. And mothers with strollers trying to watch out are also not always able to see due to distractions. People of all ages are distracted with cell phones and earbuds. Loyalist Trail across from the school is clearly marked as a bicycle route. Again, not a good mix with industrial traffic. Then we add to the mixed neighborhood traffic, school buses, plus commuter traffic cutting through the neighborhood or driving to and from the school. But most importantly, the children, high school, elementary, preschool, all over the neighborhood, all like to play. So they head to the playground and the trails off of Loyalist Trail, and now across the 6th line to the new school. We must do our very best to keep them safe. Please prevent a tragedy. Act now, not after when it's too late. If you want a school across from Loyalist Trail, changes must be made to Loyalist Trail. It must no longer be approved as a truck route. All industrial traffic should come from William Halton Parkway, directly or from the east side, and not through our neighborhood. Let me ask you again, do you have children or elderly parents? If you care, protect them. We care enough to speak out on their behalf. Now it's your turn to help our children and residents to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamore. For those political candidates who are here, you might be interested to know that council has a rule against applauding so that everybody can be heard equally and with respect. You may want to keep that in mind if you're a political candidate, because you might want to demonstrate that you're respectful of the rules. Mr. Lamore, I had a question for you. Did you want the school to go ahead?
Yes.
Thank you. Your yes is good enough. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Naveen Dharam, and he's in person.
Mr. Dharam, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Hi, Your Worship and all the councillors. I'm Naveen, I'm resident of Ward 7. I'm part of the Ivy Rouge subdivision as well. I know Mr. Lamar, he covered all the topics, but I just want to repeat, hey, we don't want access to the trucks through our Loyalist Trail. There are going to be so many things on that Loyalist Trail. So we have our residential area, with 100+ units on that, in that neighborhood. And they're already building employment, light industrial, and loading docks. We can see all the trucks going through our neighborhood already. And there is a children's park where the kids board their buses to school, preschool, high school, elementary school. There are so many kids, they play there and they board the buses to school. And it's really, really not, safe for the kids. And the last one is the fire station. And now we are going to build a high school right next to that. So we want the traffic study to be completed thoroughly with residents, kind of input. That's what we are seeking for. And I would second what Mr. Lamar was saying.
Okay, thank you. You do want the school to go ahead or not?
Absolutely. So I'm super happy that, you're building schools because, there are less number of schools in Ward 7. I wish, you build more schools. But again, taking into consideration, there are so many things on Loyalist Trail already.
I clearly get that everybody wants truck traffic off of Loyalist Trail. That is not in front of us right now. All that's in front of us right now is there going to be a high school there or not?
Absolutely, sir, yes.
And under our rules, what we're really supposed to do is speak to the issue at hand.
For sure.
I give the public great latitude because council wants to know how you feel about things. But we get what you're saying, and it's sufficient, really, to say, I agree with what Mr. Lamore said. He, as you said, he said everything.
For sure, I want to repeat, hey, these are the things, it's not just Mr. Lamar, but everyone in that residential area, we share the same, frustration.
You're free to repeat.
Hey, is there anything that, whoever is sitting here could do something better?
You're free to repeat
keep
it,
this
but you're also free to say, I agree with the other speaker.
Perfect, thank you.
But thank you for saying that you're happy to have the high school. We all are kind of very overjoyed that we're finally going to get a high school out of the public school board.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Next delegation is Panram Gopal, in person also.
Mr. Gopal, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm from the same neighborhood, and we're all wearing a black T-shirt for a reason, just to show solidarity. I agree with what Brian said in a nutshell. It's the intersection of Loyalist Trail and 6th Line that's going to be critical for this high school. My kids would most definitely go to this school, and I don't want them to get entrapped with trucks going in through that Loyalist Trail. So if your lordship can do something about the truck traffic there, that would be most welcome. I do welcome the secondary school over there. Also, regarding the transportation studies that are conducted, it's mostly done, it's the developers that hire external consultants to do the study and then submit it to the city. That's the process that I understood. Can the public get a copy of the transportation study so that we can review that and probably refer it to consultants of our choice? Will that be made available to the public?
Mr. Thun, is the transportation study available on the town website?
Through you, your worship, yes, it is. At each circulation or at each submission, the information is posted to the town website. So it is readily available, and you can look at it at your leisure.
All right, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your happiness that we're getting a high school. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Next delegation is Bonita Das Bahati, and she's in person also.
Good evening. Thank you. I am also a resident of Ward 7, and I fully support the new high school. It is gratifying that some of my points were already covered by Mr. Tun and Councillor Sandhu. I understand that the planning of the school is a function of the school board. I understand that the town is providing that which is sufficient. However, since urban expansion is within the remit of the town, is it correct to assume that the population projections of both the general population in that area, the school-age population, is generated by the town and then advised to the school board on the basis of which they plan?
No, but what would you like us to do here tonight?
I would like to understand that, as Mr. Thun mentioned, 15 acres has been allocated. Is this going to be adequate land space? The issue being the number of portables at the elementary school level, and we certainly don't wish to see a repeat at the secondary school level. So I'm assuming that the 15 acres are on the basis of a population density projection. So the question is, where is that coming from?
Okay. Is there anything else that you want?
No.
All right. The simple version of this is that the Ministry of Education decides whether or not the Halton District School Board is going to have a school, and it provides all the money, and it therefore determines how big the school will be. The Halton District School Board buys its standard size piece of land according to the Ministry of Education's dictates, and when the population, if and when the population gets large enough in the ministry's eyes, then another high school is built. There will be more high schools in North Oakville than just this one.
Might I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Thank you for that. So when you say the ministry decides that when the population has grown to the adequate size, so is that based on actuals or based on a projection? Because as a resident, I would hope that school planning is in tandem with town-planned urban expansion and doesn't follow expansion.
All of the town's population numbers are also descended from the provincial government. And the only, and this is a minor, I shouldn't even mention this because it'll perhaps drive you crazy, but the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance don't use the same population numbers. They've never agreed. But they're not terrifically different, so there's not a lot to chew on there. Not a lot to pick at. So the board decides the site size. We don't decide it. And many of your questions really belong at the board. The town and the board have separate and exclusive jurisdictions. We can't tell them how big to make their school. We can't tell them how big to a lot to buy. All we can do is deliver the little piece of the planning puzzle that we deliver, which is basically to certify what they want.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're very welcome. What we've just had is a little lesson in how Crown government works. And as I like to say, the town is the bottom layer of a 4-layer government cake. And trust me, all the orders come down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Gregory Park, and he is also in person.
Mr. Park, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Mr. Mayor, the councilors, and the audience, nice to meet you. Actually, I am a candidate for Ward 7 Town Councilor. Recently, I met many people near Rollers Trail, and many people feel pain. So this pain is not only their pain, but also all councilors' pain, and also your mayor's pain. So some people said the people should check their go to the city plan before they moved in, but it's a ridiculous question. So that is the same as the baby should know what the world looks like before they born. So the most people in Ward 7, they are newcomer. They expected a very comfortable life in Oakville. But in reality, in Ward 7, it's not like that. It's every day, the construction dust flows and noise and unsafety matter comes on. So this should be keep in mind. All candidates and all councilors and mayor, even though in the past there is no problem in legal process, if there is if people feels pain or unhappy, then you have to revise or reconsider. And for example, west of the Royal Trail planning connecting to the William Halton Parkway. That's a recommendation. And also this planning, the northwest of the 6th line and Burnhamthorpe. When you plan this one, you have to please consider the traffic safety. For example, the outside gate of the secondary school should be far away from the fire station, for example. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your information. Are you in favor of the high school or against it?
Yes, favor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Shahab Khan, in person also.
Welcome, Mr. Khan. This is candidates night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much to the councilors for hearing all the residents. I am very much in favor of the school. My son is scheduled to start grade 9 in 2025, and my daughter will be the year after. I do have two questions about Mr. Toon's presentation. 15 acres of land was bought originally. This E1 change, is that cutting into the 15 acres? And if so, what will happen to the sports fields and all the extra stuff that we need at high schools? And then I'll have a follow-up.
Through you, your worship, if I may bring up the presentation again on the screen.
Sorry, I was just confused with the original plan and then the amendment, which is what's going on today, so that's what
There is no amendment to the plan. The original plan is what you see on the left-hand side, through you, Your Worship. The left-hand side screen is the draft plan of subdivision that was brought before council. Block number 2 is the 15 acres that has originally been set aside, if you would like, for the secondary school. That size was determined by the school board. The amendment is only for the northerly portion where the playing field is, so that the entire property is under one designation and consistent with Roadbelt 48 from the region of Halton. So that's the only purpose of the amendment, is for this northerly portion right here. The bottom portion, for lack of a better term, south of the driveway Loyalist Trail, is already permitted to have the school. So it's the northerly portion which was the issue.
So just looking at that picture, that northerly portion where the soccer field track is going to be, will no longer, that school will not have a soccer field track and those facilities.
That secondary plan, or secondary school, this whole site will function as one. There was never a school here in the first place. It was always, as the mayor has alluded to, at Neagawa and Dundas. So because of technical issues at that site, it is being moved to this site.
No, I understand that. So there will be a soccer field track being built at the school.
There will be a soccer field, there will be a track, there will be the school, there will be daycare, there will be portables there, there will be, as you see, an abundance of parking, some grass playing fields, and there will be the potential for a dome over top of the field for four-season use.
Very nice. So I'm very happy about that clarification. Now, on top of that, you also said that above that soccer field area, you've changed a couple of, well, there's a couple of blocks which will be either employment, housing, and some other things that would be built. When I say things, I'm generalizing. Then you said that construction access to that northerly site will be from William Halton Parkway. Can you correct, if I'm wrong, can you correct me?
Through your worship to the delegation, what I mentioned, William Halton Parkway is a frontage to Block 1. Also, 6th line is a frontage to Block 1.
So construction trucks to that site will come through William Halton Parkway and 6th line?
We're not at that stage yet where construction is coming from. Right now, we're only dealing with the amendment related to that area.
Sorry, I heard that construction access will be from William Halton Parkway.
I didn't say that.
Okay, so that's my fault. I apologize. The reason why I'm asking that is if we can do it from there, can we not do it to the easterly side of 6th line? But if that's the case, then I'll take my question back.
I think the crucial difference here is there's frontage here, and there isn't there. But thank you very much for the time you took to prepare and come tonight.
You're welcome.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Matthew Wallace, and he's in person also.
Mr. Wallace, welcome. Please come down and join us. I hope the mic is tall enough for you.
It should be. Thank you, everyone. My comment is for councilors and your worship.
You just, thank you.
Okay, sure, I'll go over here. So I'll just try to be brief. A lot of the points were addressed in safety issues with the school. If the school is built on 6th line and Loyalist Trail, a few hundred meters away from industrial area across the fire station, then Loyalist Trail cannot be used as a truck route. Otherwise, my family and I do not agree with the school being built in this particular area. And I'd like to make that clear for the residents too. We're not against the high school, just this area is not conducive to this space. So I'm not against building a school, I'm against building a school on a particular site on 6th line and Loyalist Trail. Either find a new school site or change the Loyalist Trail allowance for trucks. That's what I have to say.
Okay, so did you follow what Mr. Thun just explained a second ago where, let me ask you a question. What he basically said was, we're only including we're including in the ability for the school to have the soccer field. The approval of the school isn't really what's here today. What's here is, will it have a soccer field?
I see. So I don't know if that's semantics or not, because after everyone spoke, you asked if you're in favor of the school or not the soccer field. So we're against the high school being built in this location if the truck route is not being changed.
Okay.
But I am in favor of a high school, just not this location.
Okay, so
I mean,
your
the
position is
soccer
the board
field does
needs to
come-
find you another site if we can't fix the truck traffic. Is that your position?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
That is our last listed delegation, except for the planning consultant and the school board are here if council has any questions.
All right, I'll confine the matter to table. Council, what is your wish? Councillor Adams? Councillor Palmer?
Your worship, sorry, I just have a few questions for staff as well. May I ask them now? Thank you. Through you, your worship. Well, thank you to all the delegates today for taking the time to be here and voice your concerns and give us your feedback. Based on your questions, I do have a follow-up question for staff. Are you able to speak to any concerns identified with the truck traffic in the transportation impact study? Do we have an indication of route timings in accordance with future start and end times for the high school?
Through your worship to Councillor Parmar, the TIS, or the Transportation Impact Study, deals with the existing operation of the school. It looks at the buses, it looks at the cars, it looks at the volume of the cars of the area, it looks at the trucks, it looks at the development that's around the area, and makes a recommendation that staff review to determine if it's appropriate or not. In this case, the TIS was acceptable to staff with regards to the amount of traffic and the traffic movements, okay? You have to keep in mind that 6 Line is a minor arterial road. It is a large road from town standards. It's not a Dundas Street, which is a regional arterial. It's a local arterial. So traffic that would come along Loyalist could go up to William Halton Parkway to make the east or west connections. Okay. As I mentioned, the TIS is available for their review. I'm not a transportation engineer per se, so I can't get into the nitty-gritty of an engineering type of review.
Thank you for the information you have provided, and to the residents, we will gladly provide the transportation impact study to you if you have trouble finding it online. My second question, Mr. Thun, with one of the delegates, you described the site plan in detail today. Can you please clarify for the public what the purpose of the OPA is today and what future public meetings will be held in accordance with the zoning applications brought forward by the school board?
Through your worship to Councillor Parmar, if I may get the presentation on the screen again.
Thank you.
What you see on the screen right now is the existing secondary plan, the middle, and the master plan to the south. The principle of the the application, as you see in the middle here, the blue, that is employment. Schools are not permitted on employment lands unless they are supportive to an employment use. So that is the principal reason for the official plan amendment, is to change that blue to a transition area, which allows for a school on the entirety of the property. So the proposal that was brought forward, the concept plan right now, shows the entire property being used as a secondary school use. So when I had mentioned that basically north of the driveway is principally the amendment, that is the blue area that we're talking about, okay? Which changing the blue to transition is consistent with ROPA 48 already, which has changed it out of an employment to a residential area.
Okay, so we are changing that area to a transitional area in order to facilitate the school board's future application.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the future application, we will be coming back with a zoning amendment on this property, a draft plan of subdivision on this property, and we have already had discussions with regards to the site plan requirements for this property.
Thank you for your clarifications.
Councillor Sanju.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Thank you, Mr. Thun, for your patience and your indulgence in my many, many questions.
and those from the public. I just have one kind of clarification. We've heard that there's a potential for folks to feel that this might not be the right site for the high school. And I want to clarify from a timeline perspective, if you can provide this information or if it's something that you can get from the school board for us, how long the delay would be if we had to unravel this and start all over again for a new site? What would be your best estimation on finding a new site, getting approval, and for the school board to resubmit an application so that we can get shovels in the ground for any time later than 2025?
Through your worship to Councillor Sandu, I can't give you that answer. We've been working with the school board for well over a year on this site. And before that time, it was on the other site at Niagawa and Dundas. So to find another site will be a lengthy process. And unfortunately, the longer such a facility gets delayed, the longer there is for the students to go to school in their community. And as I had mentioned, we're building the community. We want the kids to go to school there. We want the kids to go not only to the high school, but also the elementary schools. So it's all staying within your community as opposed to being bussed out to a different community.
Thank you, Mr. Thun. That gives me the clarity that I need. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody from Ward 7, oh, Councillor Palmer has your hand up, and then I'll go to Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Thun, sorry, just as a follow-up to my previous question, can you clarify as well for the public if the traffic and transportation studies are also looked at by the school board's planning staff? Like, what's their role?
Through your worship, the application was submitted by 6th Oak. They are the developers of the land. The school is a block within that land. There's a coordination between the school board and the developer to develop this site. If you look at the entire site, there's only 2 blocks of land to develop. There's the school board site and there's the employment block at the end of the day. The remaining will be coming to the town as part of the natural heritage system or as part of the stormwater management functions, the pond. So there is absolutely a coordination between all the parties, including outside agencies. So from stormwater management, it's Conservation Halton in the town. From transportation, it's the town and the region. From environmental matters, it's the Conservation Authority in the town. So yes, there is a very big dialogue between all affected parties.
Thank you.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Through you, Member Burton, to Mr. Thun. Mr. Thun, I'm concerned that there may be some misunderstanding regarding truck traffic, and I need a little more clarification. Everybody's concerned about the truck traffic. Is that the truck traffic because of the building going on in that location that people are talking about mainly right now?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Elgar, I believe the truck traffic that the members of the public are dealing with is an ongoing development that is on the north side of Loyalist Trail. It is not associated with this high school site.
No, but just that traffic will go away once the development is completed, correct?
I'm not sure what truck traffic they're alluding to, but if it's under construction, it's construction traffic right now.
Okay, and that's what I thought, because they were talking about paving and trucks waiting, and that sounded like a temporary issue. And also minor arterials. There are, how many minor arterials do we have? And what does a minor arterial mean? Maybe there's a total misunderstanding on that.
A minor arterial is the highest order of town road there is. If you go above that, it's a regional arterial. So if you think about it, Niagawa Boulevard, Dundas Street, Trafalgar Road are all regional arterials. They're in the order of 35 to 50 meters wide with multiple lanes. We are at 31 meters for this minor arterial, which will have 4 lanes of traffic. We'll have sidewalks, we'll have multi-purpose lanes, we'll have lay-by parking, all the functions that are required for the road from a vehicular, pedestrian, and multi-purpose transportation perspective.
But that minor arterial has always been in the plan, correct? Since North
That is
Oakville was...
correct. Since the inception of the secondary plan in 2008, 6th Line has always been destined to be a minor arterial road.
And it will have sidewalks, and at appropriate time it will have stoplights and crosswalks and everything for the school.
Yes, it will.
I thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Councillor Adams.
Thanks very much. I have one really, what I think is a quick question for staff, and then I'm not sure if you've got a motion, but I'd give you a motion if you'd like one. The question is, if this didn't go through, then the designation on this land, that's the employment designation, could mirror what's on the other side of 6th Line. Is that correct? On the northerly
Through your
portion?
worship to Councillor Adams, if the official plan amendment does not go forward, the existing secondary plan remains as is. So the southerly portion is transition area and the northerly portion remains as employment.
So the same kind of employment that the residents are complaining about on the other side of 6th Line could in effect be mirrored on this side?
That is correct.
Correct, okay. Thanks very much for the answer to that question. Your worship, do you have a motion? Do you want a motion at this point?
I was waiting for Ward 7 to decide if it wants the school can't happen without the soccer site because without the soccer site, it doesn't meet their standard of 15 acres. So it's a school or not is what the
I see you've
debate is
got
here.
Councillor Chisholm waiting as well, so I'll wait for giving a motion if you need one.
It's our custom to wait and see if the ward wants it. Councillor Chisholm, welcome.
Thank you, Worship. Mine is just a clarity with respect to, they're talking about designated truck route. And I guess I want clarification what that means in a designated truck route. The discussions or the deputations we've had and presentations, it's all about trucks. And there must be a solution maybe down the line where we're talking with the consultants and so forth to look at removing that truck designation. I'm not sure if that's possible or not, but I think it's, the school and the track and so forth is very important. I think that's a non-issue. I think the big issue with most of the deputations are talking about is trucks. So can we somehow put this in a motion or amendment for further down discussion if we can eliminate the trucks?
Councillor Chisholm, an amendment on this matter to deal with that matter would be out of order because they've got nothing to do with each other. The problem with that the residents are complaining about is that entire subdivision, residence and employment area, has already been approved. And so in order to change that, it's going to require a direct motion, a notice of motion from a councillor perhaps, or a request for a report to generate such a thing. Those are the procedures those are our unanimously adopted procedures to keep business orderly.
Thank you for your direction on that, Your Worship. I'll leave that to the councillors of Ward 7 if you would like to pursue that, but I'll just leave it as that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sandu.
I'm ready to move, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Sandu is moving the recommendation. I have a hand from, it disappeared. Councillor Robertson, did you want anything? Did you want to add anything?
I was going to ask a question regarding trucks after construction. As a high school teacher for 32 years, I don't understand why trucks would be a concern because there's not a lot of trucks in and out of the school on a daily basis, maybe a weekly basis for the cafeteria. As your school is in a very dense area, the need for school buses will be very limited. So I guess my question is to the school board, if that's allowed, that the representative here, in terms of how many trucks you foresee into a high school within any given week or day.
Councillor, it's totally in order if you want to ask that of the school board, but what's, I think, been made clear here is the residents are not concerned about truck traffic. That's the normal part of a school operation. They're using the opportunity of this matter to camp on their concern about trucks in their subdivision, which was approved long ago enough for them to be living in it now. Mm-hmm. So this is we want our subdivision changed. And what they're doing is saying, I'll put it this way. They're saying, thanks for the opportunity to tell you about this other matter that we're concerned about. And, and as they were careful to say, they do want the school. What they want though is they want their subdivision changed. And there's a process to try to do that. This isn't it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sanju has moved the staff recommendation. It's in order. Can I put the vote? Is there any objection to Councillor Sanju's motion? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, Councillor Sanju, your motion carries unanimously. You've helped create a school for a part of the community that really wants one. Thank you very much. All right, Council, the next item before us is item 7.1, which is the Parks and Open Space Strategy. And this is now going to a special Planning and Development Council meeting next Monday on September 12th at 6:30 p.m. And we need a member to move that the report from the Planning Services Department detailing that be received. Councillor Elger, thank you. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, there being none, that procedural matter is taken care of. Thanks, everybody. Now, the next matter concerns the town's careful efforts to make sure that we can continue to collect as much as possible of the costs of growth from developments. And this is the new community benefits charge strategy and bylaw, which we are doing because the province has changed the old regime where we used to collect almost all, but not quite all, the costs of growth through development charges. And now, if we give our attention to Matt Day, our Manager of Development, Financing and Investments, we will be edified. This matter, as Matt will explain, has been before us before, and there is a deadline of September 18th, and if we do not adopt a community benefits charge by then, it will be too late and we will not be able to have a community benefits charge. We will be lowered down to the bare minimum amount that the province would prefer we collect. Mr. Day.
Thank you, Mayor Burton, and good evening, Council. I do have a short presentation on the community benefit charge strategy and bylaw, providing some further information regarding questions and feedback from Council and the public. Okay. So, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the main reason we're here tonight is that there were legislative changes to the town's growth funding tools, which are development charges, parkland dedication, and Section 37 of the Planning Act. Section 37 of the Planning Act, or bonus zoning for increased height and density, was repealed and a new community benefits charge was added. The town has utilized bonus zoning successfully in the past to provide public benefits and will continue to do so over the coming years in accordance with existing bonusing bylaws and their implementing agreements. It is important that the town continue utilizing Section 37 going forward in the new format of a community benefits charge. The province did provide for a 2-year transition period that concludes on September 18th for municipalities to migrate to this new regime. The town's consultants, Watson and Associates economists, presented the Cbc strategy in August, and tonight we have the Cbc bylaw before you for adoption, as well as an accompanying policy and procedure to allow for the successful implementation of this new charge. The 2-year transition period did allow time for the town to assess its growth-related capital needs and how each funding tool is being used to recover the capital costs over the next 10 years. CBCs are for things that are not being collected for using development charges or parkland dedication. Because DCs and parkland dedication are able to recover what is needed in those areas to the extent that legislation allows, the focus during the Cbc strategy was on the service areas that are currently being funded by the tax base and are not eligible for development charges or parkland dedication. As such, $117 million in net growth-related capital costs in the areas of parking, culture, and general administration were identified. When we look at the high-density share of those costs, or the CBC eligible share, that's $14.4 million. Now, one of the major changes that the province did make through Bill 108 was implementing a cap on collections under Section 37 at 4% of land value. When we take the growth forecast and translate that 4% of land value, it turns into 11.7 million. So there is a funding gap or shortfall between what the town needs and what it can collect using CBCs of 2.7 million. So therefore, CBC funding will need to be prioritized through the annual budget process and through consideration of in-kind contributions on a site-by-site basis due to this limitation on CBC funding. Questions arose at the August Council meeting regarding the cost of growth to the town and CBC exemptions. This slide shows that the total growth-related expenditures from 2022 to 2031 are expected to be $1.05 billion. The town does use its growth funding tools to the extent allowable. However, growth does not fully pay for growth due to legislative restrictions, which I'll go through now. The town's share of growth as a result of those restrictions is $149 million over the 10-year period, or 14%. As was discussed in July at the DC bylaw meeting, there is a cost of growth for DC services, and that's a result of restrictions in the Development Charges Act, namely mandatory exemptions for certain categories of development, as well as service standard caps. Now, it is important to note that the $44.3 million identified in the lower left box, $17.5 million may be collected in a future DC bylaw beyond 2031. The majority of the town portion of funding is related to services that are not eligible for development charge collection. CBCs are now able to pick up some of these costs, the high density share. However, there is a significant amount of non-CBC eligible growth that the town still needs to fund. As you can see on the slide, that's $63.5 million, and what that relates to is the portion of growth that benefits low and medium density residential development, high density development that has utilized the former Section 37 of the Planning Act, and non-residential growth. When it comes to CBC eligible development, there are still some deductions that need to be made, similar to DC's. The first being the 4% cap that we spoke of, and that adds $2.7 million to the total town cost of growth. Next, there are CBC exemptions, and these relate to long-term care and retirement homes, hospices, not-for-profit housing, post-secondary institutions, and buildings for the purposes of the Royal Canadian Legion. Lastly, there is a portion of some projects that benefit growth beyond 2031, and we may be able to pick up some of those costs in a future CBC bylaw beyond 2031, but at the moment that amounts to $37 million in the town portion of growth. So when we add all these components together, we get a total of $149.5 million over the 10-year period, or on an annualized basis, $14.9 million. As part of the CBC strategy and bylaw process, we did undertake public consultation, and we had 2 stakeholder sessions. There were a number of requests from the development community, including requests for exemptions for rental housing, credits for pre-existing structures, the use of a unit rate or a unit rate cap, as opposed to administering the charge on a percentage of land value to provide for cost certainty, extended transition provisions for projects that are at varying stages in the development process, and there were also some technical questions regarding inputs to the CBC strategy that did not raise any issues requiring any amendments. So at the end of the day, after considering the requests, only minor changes were made to the wording in the CBC bylaw to clarify the transition provisions, and the reason being that these other changes really would limit the amount of CBCs that can be collected, shifting costs back onto the taxpayer. That does conclude my presentation. We have Gary Scanlon and Byron Tan from Watson & Associates on the line, as well as staff, and are happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Day, for a very thorough review of what we've been through before. Councillor O'Meara has a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Day. And I wholeheartedly agree with the statements both yourself and the mayor made about maximizing our ability to, to collect the CBC What I didn't see in the report was questions that this council asked of you with regards to the exemptions about the retirement center. I saw that you've had 2 sessions and you answered the questions about the developers' requests, but I believe I had asked about why we are allowing companies that are worth $38 billion, that are worth $800 million, that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. And I'm wondering if that is a part of a mandated exemption or not.
Through you, Mayor Burton. Yes, Councillor, that is a mandated exemption. So we really don't have a choice. It's part of the regulations in the Planning Act. And if the development is licensed under the Retirement Homes Act or the Long-Term Care Homes Act, they are eligible for that exemption.
Because I asked that because in the acts that you put in front of us here, there's a very clear separation between long-term care home and a retirement home. And I know in your presentation you said a long-term care retirement home. And are we conflating the two, or are those two specifically separated out in the CBC legislation?
Through you, Mayor Burton, they are separated out in the legislation, and they do need to be licensed homes in each of those acts, the Retirement Homes Act or the Long-Term Care Homes Act, whichever applies.
Okay, well, I'd like to see then this added to our advocacy list at some point down the road, because there's some people out there who are building great affordable rental housing that don't qualify for this, and there's multi-generational billionaires who we're giving breaks to. So we'll pick that up later, but I thank you for your answers. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you, Mr. Day. You talked on the slide about the annual cost to the town being $14.9 million in terms of the gap. More accurately, that would be the cost to our taxpayers, would it not, per household?
Through you, Mayor Burton. Yes, Councillor Giddings, that is correct. There are different funding sources at times, like user fees. For example, parking. A lot of the parking projects are funded from the parking reserve, which is largely supplemented by parking fees. So, but generally the existing tax base is contributing to that. So yes.
Thank you for that. And with this new bylaw, if it's approved this evening, will we be better off, or will we be a little further behind in terms of funding?
Through you, Mayor Burton, that is a difficult one to answer, because with bonusing, it applied where we were approving that additional height and density. It's a little more difficult to forecast what that could have been, whereas now the CBC applies to all residential growth of 5 or more stories and 10 or more units, regardless of whether it would have needed a bonusing amendment. So it's spread across the town more. Which is better? It's kind of difficult to say.
So as we move forward, we'll be able to track that and look at it on a regular basis, whether that's annually or whatever, to see whether we're losing or whether we're gaining.
We would be able to look at that, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Day. My question goes to the public feedback and something that I know was brought up at council last time, and that was any consideration for the fact that now there will be no bonusing, and there just seems to be a big pot that all CBC money will go into. For the people that have to absorb growth in their community and will see growth higher now, that may, still meet our official plan, but would have been bonused before. How do the people in that particular neighborhood have any guarantee that the money will be allocated back into that neighborhood, or is that never going to happen now?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I wouldn't say that that's never going to happen. I think part of what staff do through the annual budget process is look at capital needs in various areas, and an area that's experiencing a lot of high density growth is going to need parking, public art, and different things like that. Now, similar to bonusing, we have included flexibility in the CBC bylaw and the policy and procedure where we could look at accepting in-kind contributions on a site-by-site basis. So if there are large developments and perhaps things that could be provided by that site, we may be able to achieve a local benefit that way as well. But it will come down to kind of the typical annual budget process or specific site applications where council will have those decisions that they can make. But I do want to reiterate that, as was brought up, this 4% cap is going to limit it compared to what we've seen in the past with bonusing.
Yes, and I think my worry is for Bronte Village, for Kerr Street, for downtown, that our minor growth hubs will still end up with what would have been bonusing before and things that would come back to their neighborhoods. But the north and center areas are growing so much, and yes, they will have great needs, but it feels like there are not resources coming back into the communities that are taking growth.
Councillor, let me try to help you. These are going to be council decisions. Council can decide to put the money where it comes from. Council can decide whatever it wants. And that's the reason, the main reason councils exist is to make budgets.
Good, thank you.
So don't be of good cheer.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Day, do I understand correctly that we'll have less money to pay for costs of growth if we don't adopt this bylaw?
Through you, Mayor Burton, that is correct, about at least 11.7 million.
I beg your pardon?
I said that is correct, at least 11.7 million, which is what.
All right, so let's focus on the good news here. If we do this, we get 11.7 million that we won't otherwise get. Who wants to be the one to move it? Councillor Lischina, I think that's a good motion. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, we're all in favor of having 11.7 million more than we otherwise would. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Day. Thank you, everybody. Now, Council, we have two subdivision reports here. 7.3 is, actually, I'm sorry, I misspeak. We have 7.3 is the recommendation report and official plan amendment for April Investments Limited and 527079 Ontario and Trans-County Development Corporation and Oakville Developments at 560, 584, 550, and 530 Kerr Street, and 131 and 171 Spears Road. And this is the matter on which Councillor Knoll has declared a conflict.
Your Worship, and I have a point of order, or not point of order, point of privilege on my conflict. I had some technical issues with my agenda monitor here. It's still not on, and I was juggling, and I forgot to declare that I also have a conflict on 5.4. Now, I know that you dealt with that already. It's already been approved. The recommendation has been approved, but I will note that I did not put my hand up. Or you can take the vote again. I'll leave that to your discretion, but I neglected to declare my conflict on that because it is related.
The clerk will note that you didn't vote on that.
Thank you.
And if you'll file your declaration.
The clerk's right here. I can't help but file it instantly.
All right. Then I think you'll be good.
Thank you.
Councillor Dudek.
Thank you, Worship. Just before we entertain this particular item, and I know we have two delegations that wanted to speak to the item, so I don't want to preempt them, but it might assist. Both Councillor Chisholm and myself would like to move deferral of this item to give the public sufficient time. There was a very tight window of notification for the residents in the area. They only got it late in the week, and being a long weekend, some were totally unaware of this actually taking place tonight. So we'd like to have the opportunity to have the public review, provide comments, and then we can deal with the item at that time. Not a reflection of anything on the applicant's part. It's just that we need to provide sufficient notification and comment from members of the public. It's a very, very, what shall I say, huge item, huge impact on the area and huge impact on the Oakville community. We have one chance to do it. We want to get it right.
Councillor Duddick, thank you, and Councillor Chisholm for standing up for maintaining council's standards of public consultation and notice. Before I turn to Councillor Chisholm, Councillor Duddick, did you have a date in mind for this deferral?
I believe the first planning and development meeting will be in the next term, which would be December 5th, I believe, looking at the calendar.
Thank you.
So be the first opportunity to have it returned back.
All right. Councillor Chisholm, did you want to move something different or speak in support?
No, just in support of Councillor Duddick's information, just as so everybody and for the public to understand, this is a major, major development that's happening. We're calling it a comprehensive site. There are 11 tall buildings going on this site that has been recommended. It is, we look at this as the west side of our Midtown, west side, and we want to spend some time to make sure we get this right. It is going to be a phased-in development. However, it is, as Councillor Duddick indicated, the timing on this and getting feedback from the public is very important. We want to get this right. So that's my only comments, and I thank the indulgence of council on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. I certainly support you too on this. Councillor O'Meara.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question to either my council colleagues or even yourself about the deferral. Does this leave us exposed at all with regards to timelines to make a decision, or what would be the implications of deferring that?
No, sir. There's no implication.
Fair enough. Thank you.
May I put the vote? Is there any objection to the motion to defer to December 5th? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, that carries. Thank you, everybody.
Your Worship, do we hear from the two delegates, though, that were registered on this item?
Well, as I understood it, we could if you wish, but as I understood it, they're the proponents and might very well prefer to speak when we consider the matter. I
believe the one, Ms. Anderson, was representing the owner of 171 Spears, if I'm not
well, she is, but let's, I mean, let's, by all means, let's poll her, but it's...
Okay, I just want to make sure that people
had... I would suggest that having deferred it, she really wants to save her fire for when we consider it. So if you'll... anyway, she's going to have a full shot at you on December 5th, or whoever of you are here on December 5th. All right, thank you, Councillor. So can we turn now to 7.4, which is, I started to say 7.4 and 7.5 are two subdivisions, as I understand it. They're both going to be presented by Rob Thun in order. We have the same registered delegations for each, and so I guess it's a package deal here. And they both have in common that they're in the vicinity of the Loyalist Trail, Burnhamthorpe area that we discussed at great length earlier this evening. Mr. Thun, we look forward to your presentation, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Okay, once again, thank you, Mayor Burton, members of council. Before you tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision application submitted by Star Oak Developments Limited for the development of approximately 23.5 hectares of land located on the southwest corner of Burnhamthorpe Road and 6th Line. So this is directly to the south of my previous presentation. This is a recommendation meeting on the submitted application, and the report can be found as item 7.4 on the agenda. On the screen here is the location and context for the subject property. So the air photo identifies the site itself, as mentioned, Burnhamthorpe Road and 6th Line, southwest corner. A portion of the subject lands, as you can see, are vacant agricultural lands. The site is also traversed by, as you can see, through the streams that are on site, part of the West Morrison Creek subwatershed, and also contains Core 7 woodlot, which I had identified previously, as part of the North Oakville Creek subwatershed study. As you can see from the air photo also, there is development going on to the east of the site, residential construction. There have been several other applications that have been submitted and approved by council just immediately south of Burnhamthorpe Road, east of 6th Line. From a contextual point of view, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see basically an area design plan which identifies a number of subdivisions, 1 through 8. Council has already dealt with 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is Digram, that is Argo, that is Timpson, and that is Mattamy Preserve Phase 4. This subject application will be the 5th one or the 4th one on the west side of 6th Line. And the one I'll be presenting that you had mentioned, Your Worship, will be the 6th one just west of 6th Line. On the screen is the draft plan of subdivision. I apologize for the clarity. However, the proposal itself is for 68 detached dwellings that you can see in the lower area here where my cursor is, and also 128 townhouses, a stormwater management pond, which is block 92, 2 natural heritage system blocks which are critical to the West Morrison Creek subwatershed, 93 being a creek block and 94 being core 7, which is the wooded area, which also includes a provincially significant wetland. Access to the site will be from 6th Line, from the east, and also Preserve Drive, which is to the south, which will be built by Argo and Digram to the south, and Mattamy. And also there are some blocks that front onto Burnhamthorpe Road. The statutory public meeting was held on May 21st or May 10th, 2021. No members of the public attended or did provide comments. This property is part of the 2020 Regional Servicing Allocation Program, so it does have allocation. From a secondary plan and master plan perspective, the subject lands are designated natural area or neighborhood area and natural heritage system. That is on the left-hand side of the slide. From the master plan perspective, you will see that the property is identified for natural heritage system, general urban, which is a residential category, neighborhood center, which is a residential and a mixed use category, the stormwater management pond, which I had alluded to, and also the creek block, which is part of the natural heritage system. And once again, the master plan illustrates a concept design from 2008. There are other ways of dealing with development in the North Oakville East planning area, provided that the principles are being maintained. From a zoning perspective, the existing zoning on the site is future development, FD. Council will remember that it used to be called existing development and was recently changed. So the proposed bylaw that staff are putting forward in front of council, which is bylaw 2022-096, staff are proposing from a mapping perspective to change the FD to neighborhood center and C, general urban, natural heritage system, and stormwater management facilities. This bylaw would permit, as you will see in the bylaw that's in Appendix C, permit bay box windows, widths of 4 meters, and also for porches in 427, amending its percentage, and also clarifies what is a vertical plane, and that all relates to the porch, those latter two. It also amends the 7-meter rear yard setback for detached dwellings in the general urban zone to 6 meters, where the lots are 28 meters or less in depth. Staff do consider this acceptable as an appropriate separation distance between dwellings. So it would be 6 and 6 would be 12 meters for a rear yard, or a separation distance, I should say. And the future homeowners would have a full backyard that's unencumbered from an addition that would be permitted under the existing zoning. Under the existing zoning right now, you have a 7-meter rear yard, but for 45% of that dwelling, you can actually go to 3 meters. So your green space in the backyard gets that much smaller. This is more in a traditional sense, what is being proposed. Notwithstanding that, encroachments that are in the existing zoning bylaw and table 421 would still be permitted. So the bay box windows, the porches, or the balcony, or sorry, the decks would still be permitted. So that could occur in the rear yard. However, with regards to the reduction in the rear yard setback, staff are proposing that there be no additional floor area extending into the 6 meters. So that would be prohibited. Not permissible, as prohibited. And we've used a stronger language here to say that you could not apply for a variance in the future. So the 6 meter rear yard would be the 6 meter rear yard. Also, we're including holding provision 55, that's related to regional servicing. That is a typical holding provision that the region has asked for, and it has already been included with the Digram, Argo, Timpson, and the lower fourth. You will note that on the screen here, where my cursor is, there are 2 blocks being created as part of the draft plan, but similarly, they are not going to be rezoned at this present time. There's a coordination effort that is necessary between the landowners on the south side of Burnhamthorpe with a number of matters, drainage, grading, Burnhamthorpe Road, access, driveways, things like that, that need to be coordinated. So those will remain as future development, but will be created as a block from the draft plan perspective. And it's anticipated that a zoning bylaw amendment would come to council in the future to rezone those parcels once an appropriate development scheme has been devised. So Appendix C does contain the proposed amendment, Your Worship. With regards to parking, you will see from the slide, we have slotted, or the applicant has slotted as best they could, the on-street parking between driveways to try and maximize the on-street parking. This is, as always, a fluid type of document that will be reviewed as part of the engineering review to see if we can maximize more parking on-street. With regards to the garages, and I know this was a concern of council in the past, the garages have been sized to allow for storage areas at the, I'll call it the end of the parking space, so that garbage, lawnmowers, things of that nature can be stored appropriately. With regards, council had asked about electric cars, and the rough-ins for electric vehicles will be an option that would be provided by the developer, or the builder, I should say, to the prospective purchasers if they choose to. As mentioned in my first presentation, Your Worship, there were some comments that were submitted today with regards to Star Oak. One related to traffic flow and 6th line. As I'd mentioned previously, 6th line is a minor arterial road. It is being constructed by the town. It has multifacets to its design, be it the road platform, be it sidewalks, be it multipurpose trails, be it on-street parking. So all those are being looked at. And this was, as I mentioned to Councillor Algar, envisioned in 2008 as part of the approval for the secondary plan. With regards to the occupancy of the development on this subdivision, in discussion with the developers, we're looking at late 24, maybe early 25. There's a lot of work that has to be done with regards to the creek blocks and then the building of the subdivision. So they are targeting right now roughly late 24, early 25. There was also a comment with regards to the schools. There are no schools on this site. However, the comment was made. So for council and the public's information, 2 schools are already funded. It is Oakville 3, which is east of 8th line, and Oakville 5, which is a part of the DOCASA application, which is to the west and be part of my presentation, my next presentation. Those are both slated to be opened in 2025. So not only do we have the secondary school for 2025, we have elementary schools. So we are community building now. And that is all determined, as your worship has mentioned, by the school board and the province through their dialogue. So in conclusion, your worship, staff are putting forward this recommendation for council's consideration and look forward to any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thun. Council, any questions at this time? Councillor Elgar, first out of the bat.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm most interested in one comment you made. Is it in a purchase agreement where they cannot ask for a variance ever? I've never heard of that before. That's good news if we could do that for a lot of other things.
Through your worship to Councillor Elgar, we've used stronger language on here to try and maintain the integrity of the rear yard and the separation distances.
But
that's why we've used the word prohibited.
Okay, but even if it says prohibited, can someone not come forward and ask, and we can't do anything about that?
Well, the language is that strong that we believe you're not going to be coming for a variance application. We've had the discussion with the developers already, and basically said this is the intent of the reduction from 7 to 6, and that's what we're anticipating.
Okay, very good. Hey, we can start using that in a few other places too. Thank you.
Councillor Elgar, there's extra comfort for you on that point. We appoint the members of the Committee of Adjustment, and that's where variance applications would go. And as you know, when the committee disagrees with staff, we appeal them, and we always win. So I think we got this one covered. Next is Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Thun, can you speak to any indications of our parking strategy that is currently underway, and if anything was taken into consideration when preparing tonight's report?
With regards to the parking strategy, I'm not involved in that parking strategy, so I can't speak to it, but Mr. Charles can allude to or answer your question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the parking strategy, any recommendations that come out of that would be applied from that point forward, as opposed to being retroactive to development applications we have currently under review.
Thank you.
All right, since that may have exhausted questions from council, Madam Clerk, would you call the delegations?
Sorry, Your Worship, I wasn't complete. I actually do have a motion to make. Did you want me to do that before or after the delegations?
Your entire, state your motion, please. You have the floor.
Thank you. So I'm just, it's been an ongoing conversation with staff in terms of our parking strategy that's underway. And this has been something that Councillor Sandu and I have raised from time to time. And we recognize that with COVID and the delays in the delivery of the strategy, we haven't been able to see any preliminary ideas from it. What worries me is that we could potentially have some changes come forward from staff, some recommendations based on what the parking strategy uncovers. And I think I would feel more comfortable if we were to defer this application until we can get a better idea of what we might see come forward in that strategy and how it would affect these areas that we're planning, given that it's along Burnhamthorpe and 6th Line, and those are areas where we'll see future road expansions and a different traffic pattern.
Councillor, could you help me and the clerk with the wording of your motion? Would you like it deferred until, quote, we have a better understanding of the parking strategy, or until we get a parking strategy from staff? Are you intending to light a fire under the work, or what?
I would like to have a better understanding. I understand that right now we're not due for an update until Q1 2023, so I'd like to have a better understanding. I know staff is working through the strategy as fast as they can, but I'd prefer an update from staff on that.
All right, let me explore this a little further with the director. Mr. Charles, when can we expect the parking strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is the next time we would be coming back to council would be in early 23, just in terms of any subsequent recommendations for council.
All right. And as I understood the presentation, Mr. Charles, as I understood the presentation, there's a regional hold on this subdivision and a lot of work apparently to be done on the north side of it around drainage. And we normally would prefer a comprehensive package, but it looks to me like on the face of it, there wouldn't be much lost in terms of, I mean, subject only to appeal by the parties. We could, council might want to sharpen the deferral idea from our colleague, Councillor Palmer, to say, why don't we get our parking strategy and then we'll resume on these subdivisions.
I'm happy to sharpen that.
It looks like I've won a convert there. Can staff live with that?
That is council's prerogative, Mr. Mayor, so we will live with what council gives us.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Palmer, I hope this discussion has assisted, and I understand you to be saying you'd like it deferred until the parking strategy comes back, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. What this will do is it will delay the items until then, and so the registered delegations can wait and see what the final result is and come back and aim their fire then. Or perhaps come back and praise it, because after all, what we're trying to do here is to increase the livability of North Oakville. So I'm going to put the vote. Is there any objection to the motion to defer? Madam Clerk, there's no objection. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Now, I'm going to suggest that the next item is, so similar that I wonder if Councillor Palmer would like, and I'm putting that on the table now, and I'm wondering if Councillor Palmer would like to move the same thing on this one.
Yes, Your Worship, I think you've assumed correctly there. It's a very similar item, and I'd like to see more information on the parking strategy, and I would bring forward this the same motion for item 7.5.
Thank you. All right. So that my explanatory comments about the previous item apply here as well, and I'll put the vote. Is there any objection to Councillor Palmer's motion? Madam Clerk, there's no objection, and that carries unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, at the appropriate time, I'd also like to make a request to waive procedure and bring forward a request for report. I know a lot of residents were here tonight to delegate on their concerns regarding the traffic, the potential truck traffic at 6th Line and Loyalist. It's been an ongoing discussion that Councillor Sandu and I have had with staff, and I'd like to formalize it in a way of a request for report at the appropriate time.
I think that's a great idea, and when we get to that part of the agenda, I believe that it would be in order for you to submit that.
Thank you.
If you want to jot one down, that would be a good idea.
Thank you.
Councillor Ilger.
Mayor Burton, on that, did I hear correctly that she's not asking to waive procedures to introduce it tonight to approve a report coming back? I thought that's what I might have heard. I just want to know.
She's asking to submit a request for report, and they're in order.
Right, and okay.
So we can vote on it tonight.
Good, thank you. That's a good idea.
I had that in mind. And she obviously knows our procedures very well because she chose exactly the right tool. However, we're not at that point yet.
No, so we'll have to waive procedure to bring it to P&D.
Yeah. We will get it done.
Okay.
I am a master of our procedure. Now, the next matter that concerns, well, actually, we're going to do that now because there's no other business before council except those confidential items, and we don't want to make people wait around to come back for nothing. So, Councillor Elgar, I would accept a motion from you to waive the procedure bylaw to permit the introduction of a request for report, which normally can only happen at council. Thank you. Council, is there an objection to that motion? Madam Clerk, there's no objection. That carries unanimously, and that meets the extra majority requirement of the procedure bylaw. Councillor Palmer, we may have come back to you sooner than you thought, but we can, you know what, we can call a recess if you need a few minutes to jot it down. And,
I've been working on it,
I think
Your Worship.
everybody, I think everybody would benefit from a bio break when I consider how long we've been sitting. So I'm gonna declare a 10-minute recess, and we will then resume. So it'll be approximately 8:30 when we resume. All right. I welcome everybody back as council has had a 10-minute recess. And everybody's recharged and ready to go. The matter before us now is a request for report, which we have authorized to be presented at this meeting by Councillor Pavan Palmer. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I just need a moment to pull it up. So I just want to start off by thanking the residents for coming in today. As many of you know, we've been having these conversations with staff and trying to address all of the concerns that you raised tonight. We've also planned a meeting with staff for September 15th to go through the issues that have been brought forward. I wanted to thank council for waiving the procedures to allow me to bring this request today for the benefit of the public. Normally, this type of request would come forward at a council meeting, but my colleagues have so graciously approved it so that I could bring this request forward today. So my request reads that council requests a report on traffic calming opportunities for Loyalist Trail and possible ways to limit or remove truck traffic from Loyalist Trail, taking into consideration the residential subdivision and future schools.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any objection to the request for report? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Now, council is about to, that's the end of our public meeting material this evening, and council is about to go in camera for a couple of confidential consent items. And before we do that, I want to ask council, with regard to 5.5, there is no need to go into camera if everyone is comfortable with the public recommendation, which is that the recommendation contained in the confidential report from the legal department be approved, and this amendment is added by Councillor Hazlitt-Deal from Ward 3, that staff continue to identify for council parkland and land acquisition opportunities in both the short and longer term to support local parks for each of the strategic growth areas and local neighborhoods, and provide council with a report in Q1 2023 summarizing current and potential options. Councillor Hazlitt-Deal, would you like to move that now? All right. Council, is there any objection to that motion? Councillor O'Meara.
Your Worship, yeah, I'd still like to go into closed session. Regardless, I have questions about the report, and I have questions about stuff that on my paper.
All right. The council is proceeding into a closed session moved by Councillor O'Meara concerning a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, and in the case of 5.2, two additional reasons: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Councillor O'Meara, you moved that, right? Thank you. Any objection? There being no objection, that carries, and council is now going to prepare for an in-camera session. We thank the public for their interest and their attendance tonight, and I'll wait till the meeting's over. I'm sorry, sir, you're out of order. Sir, you are out of order.
I also want to ask.
Sir, you do not, sir, you are out of order. I can't believe that you're running for council and you can't respect basic rules. Please, you're done. You're done. All right, council is back in public session. Thank you for everybody's patience while we discussed two confidential matters. The first item of business remaining here is item 5.2. I'm going to assume that Councillor Elgar will move that staff be authorized to proceed in the appeal filed by Del Manor West in respect of an application for zoning bylaw amendment related to 1280 Dundas Street as set out in the report from the legal department dated August 30th, 2022. Thank you. Any objection to that motion? Madam Clerk, there being none, that carries. And then we have a motion previously moved by Councillor Haslet-Deal and on the floor that the recommendation contained in the confidential report dated August 30th from the legal department be approved, and that staff continue to identify for council parkland and land acquisition opportunities in both the short and longer term to support local parks for each of the strategic growth areas and local neighborhoods, and provide council with a report in Q1 2023 summarizing current and potential options. Is there any objection to that motion? Madam Clerk, there being none, I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And now, if I could find, there it is. We now need a motion to rise and report. Councillor Lischina, thank you. Any objection? That carries, Madam Clerk. I rise and report the Committee of the Whole has met and has made recommendations on confidential consent items 5.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5, public hearing items 6.1, and discussion items 7.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5 as noted by the clerk. And it would be in order for a mover and seconder for the report now. Councillor Grant, thank you, and Councillor Longo, thank you. Is there any objection to the motion? There being none, the report carries. That brings us to new business of an emergency congratulatory or condolence nature. And I know there are some sad thoughts going around in our community over some recent losses. I'm going to keep mine private. Is there anyone else? All right. Then it would be in order for consideration and reading of the... Okay, it would be in order for a mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws. And I'm going to finish that before I take hands. Excluding 2022, 89, 96, and 100, they were deferred. And now, Councillor Knoll and Councillor Duddick. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Knoll. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? They're carried. Thank you, everybody. And I have here the final page. We have finished our meeting and our work, and this might even be a good time to say it's been terrific working with you. I thank everybody for the preparation that you did and the careful consideration that you gave to all of the matters, and I especially appreciate the way we continue to listen to and heed the issues that our residents bring to us. So with that, that ends the meeting. Thank you, everybody, and good night.